Welcome everybody to Group 3 about the Thermomix, and I'm proud to present today our work, and it's all about from home cooking to home dining. And now we have a look on the organizational thoughts for redesigning and fundamental user experience. So stay tuned, and please, Johannes, Janan.
Okay, let's start with the relationship between the patent strategy and the organizational structure. The general relationship between them is the interdependent. That is, the structure will follow the strategy, and then the strategy will be in turn limited by structure. And to achieve this consistency and the coherence goal, that will be arranged between these things, like a company's business model will define a patent strategy and its objectives. Then a structure will be organized to implement this patent strategy, and the business objectives deriving a portfolio evaluation criteria, and then this criteria will control the business objective. In the case of Thermomix, they have a differentiation strategy, then comprehensive, and then they have a differentiation center to implement this strategy, and so that they will get the premium price to against their competitors. Please follow.
Okay. As Janan already explained, the patent strategy and the organizational structure, it has to be said a company's business model defines its patent strategy and its objectives and thus the organizational structure. The strategy fit is used to design the framework for an organizational structure. The strategy fit in this context states that a patent strategy must fit with the organizational structure, or in other words, the strategy fit is an organizational implementation of patent strategy. Okay. In conclusion, one can say the strategy fit is critical to execute organizational goals and objectives, and therefore the strategy fit becomes a quality criterion for organizational structure. Thank you.
Okay, so when Thermomix was first developed, especially prior to the launch of products generation TM5, it was seen, we see that there were some patent applications made directed to technical details of the Thermomix. And then after the success of Thermomix, obviously the market became saturated with the competitors, and similar devices with similar designs appeared on the market. And this also resulted in a decline in the perceived exclusivity of Thermomix in the market, because all of the patent applications at that time point were directed to some technical details of the Thermomix, which were not actually perceived by the customers. And the things like the blade and etc., which were actually seen by the customers, were not under some sort of patent protection. Therefore, this situation brings about the question of whether or not the current IP portfolio is actually prohibiting the competitors from entering into the market or not. So, while this was happening, of course, in the background, the R&D was preparing the TM5, which was going to be launched. So at this point, the management had to think about whether or not they will continue with the same IP strategy or not. So this was the breaking point, and the rest is going to be explained by Sinara.
Hi. Next slide, please. They were focused after the TM5 just to protect some components and not some features, but they started to work with integrate team with patent, trademarks, and market too, and look at the consumer and what the consumer benefits the Thermomix could bring to their lives. So like time saving, good food, flexibility, and safety. So with these kind of features protected, the competitors could not imitate the Thermomix easily, and this construction perceive that the Thermomix is unique and they can sell like for a high price in the market. So I think this is the strategy of the TM5. Next.
Thank you very much, Sinara. Now we are moving on to the next question, which is which processes and organizational components did Vorwerk implement to create the fit with this strategy? So starting off again with the core elements which had to be implemented, which are on one side strategic objectives, which enable Vorwerk to achieve specific goals they have and leads to coherence in the decision-making process, as well as process landscape and tool landscape. So starting with the process landscape, it actually means that processes are being interlinked and interacting to define the process landscape of Vorwerk, as well as the tool landscape, which are support tools enabling the execution of said processes. Additionally to that, we have the information architecture, which refers to overall information structure, contents, and tools available in the company, so in this case, in Vorwerk. Then we have the resources, which are the key resources of the company, including their personnel, so the human capital, the know-how, the financial assets, portfolio assets. And last but not least, the reporting and controlling organizational process, which creates transparency, so by reporting, and provides option to management for the control aspect. And now moving on to Andreas.
Yes, so these of course also included some changes in the processes that was in these new process tools, etc. One of the things where they implemented the DIN spec 1060 that describes the value creation process for IP assets. And one important thing, it was that all the processes were linked such that the technological implementation were matched with the corresponding customer benefit. And that makes it easier to track that you always on the correct way to protect your unique selling proposition. So, and there's then also the processes, the sequence of operational steps, and then optimize such that the value creation by each activity within the context of the business model can be realized. So next.
So finally, my turn. Now, the question is, which organizational requirements are caused by the task of the 360 IP strategy? And it's called 360, not 90 or 5 degree, which means it requires that the organization needs to be involved fully, and therefore you need an integrated IP management system. And therefore you have certain requirements for this, which means on one hand you need the strategic objectives which are from the top influencing what we want to do. You have at the bottom, you have the support things, like you need to have a process landscape which just defined things like the value creation as I had earlier. You need to have the mastering and implementation of certain tools and resources to fulfill the need of the IP management system. and it all backed up by reporting and controlling, and which is monitoring the process towards the correct execution of it. And therefore you build a system, and it's not provided in the material, but if you, for example, follow the DIN 77006, which describes management systems, in this case for IP, there's a basic high-level structure that you can find there, which answers perfectly to this task. Shupei, do you like to add something? Did I miss something? There's silence, so I guess not.
I don't really have to add anything. Just okay. I mean, to summarize, basically oops, now I'm adding something. To summarize, we have a macroscopic view, which Ricardo has presented, which is the IP department has to be clear on its strategic objectives so that it knows where the company is and where it's headed. It needs to provide coherence. And because of the sheer volume of information that has to be processed by IP departments, such as patent landscaping, know-how, competitor analysis information, it's important to set up an information architecture and to set the level and how information is processed. And again, this is supported by the process landscape tools and software, as well as by people and knowledge management. And all this comes together to support the way information is processed. So such information includes R&D information coming in. So we're now looking right at the center and we're going down to the micro level, as well as marketing information and brand analysis. And that helps us reach our strategic objectives. And then on the right side, we have reporting and controlling. And that's also a system that's important for IP departments to integrate, because you need compliance, as well as to think of legal consequences, such as, for example, trade secrets. You might want to be thinking, if you're reaching the levels of the legalistic requirements of best efforts to keep things secret, etc. So to wrap up, it's 360-degree IP strategy with an eye on macroscopic processes as well as microprocessors. And next, thank you.